Hi, everybody.
Your face got so close to the camera for a second. Good morning.
We're going to start off with a creeper moment.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, everybody. Okay.
Super excited for today's chat.
I don't know if I am or not.
Peggy had to study for this one.
I did. I had to study for this one. I tried to read a little bit. And then, yeah. So how's everybody?
What was last
Why
week's
am I
topic?
having Nostradamus? It was Nostradamus.
I was like, how can you forget the person whose birthday you share?
Hi, Jen. Hi, Alexa. Hi, long-haired, skinny-eyed toe. Hi, everybody.
Hi, everybody.
Yeah, so last weekend's topic was Nostradamus. Okay, this and I have a blow your mind moment for this week's topic. Why are you shaking your head at me?
Don't do the blow your mind moment yet.
I'm not doing it yet.
Oh, you're just teasing it?
I'm
You
teasing.
tease?
I'm a tease. Yes,
You
I'm a
tease?
tease.
Hi, Jen.
No, it's earlier than usual. We're kind of finding out that Sundays might be a bit of a problem because we have the kids coming over this afternoon, but Lisa's also busy on Monday. So it's like, well, we either have to have it earlier today or we have to skip it until Tuesday. We're really going to have to really rethink what the best time and day is to do this if we want to stay consistent.
Consistency is a challenge because of scheduling.
Well, consistency is not consistency is a challenge if we want to be going live at a time of day where it's most convenient for the most people to watch it. Like, because we can go live at like 9 o'clock at night our time, which is like, you know, like what, 10 midnight
everywhere else.
Yeah, it's like, so yeah, we're sorting that out.
Oh, yay, that's true. Now the Europeans can join. Yeah, this is
this is a good time. This is a good time for overseas, for Europe, UK. So there's that.
So we may end up having to play around with the time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So Lady Night. Yeah, Lady Night of Avalon. We might start thinking about earlier times of the day. Today was weird because Lisa also just did 3 fat readers this morning.
Yeah, it was fun.
Lisa gets up for 3 fat readers. We get 30 minutes, and then it's time for my video.
You almost said 3 flat readers.
3 flat readers. Very flat. Yeah, very flat. No, so for 3 fat readers, but this might actually the 11 a.m. Sunday might actually turn out to be a good time.
Yeah, it might not be bad.
Might not be bad. We could possibly go a little earlier.
We want to make sure we're wrapped up by 1 for Becca's 1 p.m. Sunday live. And also Sundays are really busy with lives. I think that's the other thing we're realizing.
I don't mind. I don't know. I don't mind. Yeah. I don't mind Sundays being busy with lives. I just don't. I mean, because, well, the weekend in general is really busy with lives. It's impossible to do a live on the weekend without cutting into somebody's time somewhere.
That's super true.
So that's just a fact of life. I mean, anybody who even occasionally does a live on the weekends has that to deal with. So that's not a problem. But yeah, we'll figure it out. I did too. I just spilled coffee all over myself.
Did you? I love it when you start a live with a spill.
Oh my God. Yeah, so let's just adjust the camera.
I had to wake her up really quick so that she could like help me get set up for 3 fat readers. So she was up a little earlier than she would otherwise be.
No, I was woken up a little abruptly for what I otherwise would have been on a Sunday. But...
Oh, Jen makes a good point. She says, I love Sundays being busy with lives. It's my tarot tube day. Well, that's a good point. I suppose if you're kind of settling in and hunkering down for some chats on Sundays, then being in a really busy Sunday is not a big deal.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like I said, we're not torturing ourselves over here about this. We're just chatting about it. Because if it's not a convenient time for us, then we're not going to have a good time. And then we're just going to be like, I'm really miserable about doing this chat for you guys, but here I am. And it's like, that's kind of pointless too.
Yeah.
But this works. Unfortunately, until we decide.
Do you want a new shirt, babe? Because
yeah,
I didn't work that out.
Until we kind of fall into what's going to work out to be the best time for us, at a time that doesn't screw over everybody. We're probably going to be a little bit here and there on the map while we sort it out, but it is what it is. It is what it is. This is supposed to be fun, so that's fine too. So. Yeah, John D was from England. He was basically referred to as the Merlin of Queen Elizabeth I's court.
Did you say it was the Merlin?
Considered to be. Yeah, I'm not sure if it was actually.
Merlin was a title.
Merlin was a title, and I don't know if that was his official title or not, but that's how he was referred to. Yeah, he became the court astronomer and cartographer map maker. It sounds like, from what I was able to read, it sounds like it sounds like his most valuable skill initially, at first, was map making skills, because at in his time, that's when the gold ships are coming back from Central and South America to Spain. So Britain had a vested interest in exploring the New World. So he did all of the studies and created the maps and created navigation instruments to help the British Navy. But Lisa has to get up and do chores. Don't be too long. I'll miss you.
You will not.
She just flipped me the bird. Just like that. You flipped me the bird. She flipped me the bird. See, Shayla's growling. What are you rotten little puppies doing? Okay. Jen the middle-aged baby witch has some perfume from Black Phoenix Alchemy Lab called John
D. I just asked her what it smelled like.
Oh, I missed that part. Yes, she did. I'm not telling you. She said it's the scent is soft English leather, rosewood, and tonka with a hint of incense, parchment, and soft wood. So it's super dark smelling and absolutely amazing. No clue what the scents actually are.
Yum.
Oh, so that was the first comment. Then this was the second comment.
Got it.
It's from their website. Oh, and Ensis818. Hi. So yeah. So last week we talked about Nostradamus, who was obviously known for his prophecies, his future predictions. He was also he also studied alchemy, studied Kabbalistic practices. I'm not sure how to describe it, because what I'm pretty based on everything I found out about Nostradamus. When you refer to the Kabbalah and things like that today, it is not even remotely close to what it was considered back then. So I'm not even going to pretend to think that, it's as things evolve. So Kabbalah back in his day was a much more mystical, magical practice. And I know that it's associated with mysticism and magical practices nowadays, but it was a much different thing. So that was last week. So our little blow your mind fun fact: Nostradamus was born on December 14th. That's my birthday. John D was born on July 13th. I didn't mark down the year, which is Lisa's birthday.
My birthday.
It's like,
so
that's
trippy.
just weird. So I was born on Nostradamus's birthday, and she was born on John D's birthday, and basically their practices were overlapping.
I think that's so cool. That's like the best.
Yeah, it's totally cool. So I knew nothing. I know nothing about John D. So if I get something wrong, correct me. I literally just read about his life in this book, Witches and Wizards, the real life stories behind the occult's greatest legends.
One of my favorite books.
I just read the entry on him like half an hour ago. Yeah, Jimmy Kelly says Kabbalah today is totally different, but keeps some essences. So, yeah, but yeah, it's totally spooky that we share these same birthdays. It's like, and Dustin looked up his birthday, and it's like a couple of actors. It's like, it's very weird. It's very, very weird. So far, every topic that we've picked, I get that. Okay, when we put the names in the hat, obviously there was obviously a lot of the topics had some relationship to each other. Every single live that I've done so far has kind of bled some way, somehow into the next live. It's yeah. So Nostradamus and then John D. So yeah, we're not really studying. I mean, honestly, for me, this was a bit of study because I know nothing about John D. This is just like, hey, here's some shit I know about some shit. So, but yeah, anybody who knows some stuff or took notes, or if I say something wrong, I mean, absolutely. So, and you know what? I didn't even, like I said, I made note of when his birthday was. I didn't even make note of the year that he was born.
Oh, I can look it up.
So. Yeah, okay, let me just back up to the beginning. I'm probably gonna.
Oh, I wonder what day he died. He died in December.
Did he?
Yeah.
I have the entry, and I lost the beginning of it.
It doesn't say the date of his death, though. But that's trippy.
He died when he was like 82. He lived to be 82.
That's old for that time.
The curious Mr. Kelly.
1527.
Okay, so where is it? Okay, so yeah, 1527 to 1609. We know he was born on July 13th. Don't know when he died. So basically, he was a mathematical genius, which Lisa's the opposite. So we're not sure why they were.
I hate math, though. It's true.
She hates math.
I think I was John D in a past life and super traumatized. I say
that's what John D. Now John D was. He was incredibly. He was very, very famous. He was like the Merlin of Queen Elizabeth the First court. He was very, very famous for a lot of things, but he just never quite got the respect or recognition he deserved. And this was something that basically followed him throughout his life. So he was always on to the right thing, but he seemed to always just miss the mark just the littlest tiny bit. So he was gifted in mathematics, and at 15 went to Cambridge University. His family he became a doctor. Yeah, I'm probably going to be reading massive excerpts from this book because
I just posted something because it came up in chat. So Whale Song said
Enochian magic. Oh yeah, we're going to get onto that. Like basically, in the earlier part of his life, he got a doctorate in mathematics. He became a cartographer, map making, and of course the British Navy, the British Empire, the British expansion. Kind of a lot of that all started with Elizabeth I. So he finds his way into court, and again, if anybody has more detailed information, he came to the attention of the court for his mathematical ability, and he was also investigating a lot of stuff that would be considered magic. So he gets invited to the court by Queen Mary to cast her horoscope, which he does.
Isn't that how Nostradamus? Didn't he also get invited to some queen's court to cast some horoscopes?
Horoscopes were all the rage. Don't forget, Nostradamus and John Dee both were alive. Like when Nostradamus died in his like late 50s of gout. And John Dee was like 28 or something like that. So they were both alive at the same time. If they had ever been in the same, it's entirely possible that they did meet. You don't know, right? Because famous, well-known people in their fields there's no internet, so you would just go visiting. But so he gets some fame as an astronomer casting horoscopes because mathematics and astronomy and all that stuff were very, very connected because science was still a brand new field, really. So he gets called to court to cast the horoscope for Queen Mary, casts her horoscope, and it doesn't really say what she said. But while he's there, because it makes sense, he's in court, so all the other courtiers are going to want their horoscopes cast. He casts the horoscope of Queen Mary's younger half-sister, Elizabeth. And her horoscope was that she was going to become queen, which upset the queen. I forget whether Mary was queen yet. Yeah, she was the queen. This upsets the queen. This upsets Queen Mary, who's like, she's not next in line. What's going on? He gets arrested and put in jail. He's in the tower, right? He eventually talks his way out of the tower because it was considered casting horoscopes was considered a facet of mathematics. So he's like, look, this is what the math is saying. It's not me. I'm just interpreting God's will. And however that went, who knows? I don't know. And it might be documented somewhere, but it wasn't. Yeah, we'll get to the Enochian thing. That was weird. That came up later. So anyway, so he's in the tower, and I'm not sure. I can't remember the time frames because and this book doesn't really talk too much about the time frames. So he's making maps that the British Navy is using, that the Royal Navy is using. He's doing other things. Then somewhere in the mix, he's casting this horoscope. Queen Mary gets upset because he's predicting that her younger half sister is going to become queen, which does not sit well with her. He goes into the tower. He very narrowly avoids execution because, I mean, the royal court can say, I don't like what you just said, off with his head. Like, I mean, as a matter of fact, isn't Queen Mary the queen on whom the Queen of Hearts in Alice in Wonderland is based on? Off with their heads? Isn't
Uh,
I am so behind.
based on Queen Elizabeth, I think.
Anyway, I'm not sure which queen is. Anyway, so he's in the tower.
Oh, loosely based on Queen Victoria.
Oh, Queen Victoria. Okay, so different queen. But anyway, that's the power. That's the power of the crown. So when you upset the current queen by predicting that her younger sister is going to become the queen, and don't forget a lot of royal ascensions happen through poison and murder. So yeah, she's going to be upset. So Queen Mary, he does get pardoned. We don't really hear a lot about what happened after that. Then Queen Elizabeth does become queen. Her sister passes away. She becomes the queen. She calls him to court and basically appoints him the royal like wizard and astronomer. And they use the word wizard and the Merlin and whatnot in the modern descriptions. I have no idea whether that was the actual title or whether that's just the romantic version, the romantic view of what was going on. So he's advising her in predictive that he's giving predictions. He's casting horoscopes. He's doing various divinations and whatnot. So yeah, Lady Knight of Avalon said she wasn't called Bloody Mary for no reason. Well, and she got mad at him. Anyway, so he's in the and apparently the one book says he was arrested more than once. This book only mentions the one as a notable incident. So I don't know what the deal on that was, but he was arrested a couple of times for treason, and he was arrested a couple of times for heresy and practicing witchcraft, because science and witchcraft and magic were all very intertwined back then. So you had to be really careful how you navigated that to stay on the good side of whatever religious influence was happening at the time. So there we are on that. So, Abundance Tarot NL. This is the first Peggy chat live. It's fun to watch from another angle. Oh, thanks. Welcome to the chat. I'm kind of looking up and over at the book. I'm probably if you guys need to make sure I see something, or if you have a question or a comment, put it in all caps or do the @ symbol. Lisa's also over there on the command center. Because if we come up with the one thing I do want to show eventually is his sigil.
I think I have that here.
So she might pop up with she might like pop me off to the side and then pop up with a diagram or a quotable quote or something like that to help the process along for us. So anyway, so where am I? So right now things are kind of boring. So then now Dustin from Modern Metaphysic Man, if he pops in, there is a relationship between John Dee and Shakespeare that I couldn't find, that I was looking. I found it when Dustin first mentioned this in passing weeks ago. I found the reference. I didn't find it this last week, and I don't know what I was doing wrong to not look it up. Apparently John Dee, very, very closely connected in court, served in court for like 20 years. Had a very clear reference to Shakespeare. Did not.
I think he was the first person to determine or to put forward the idea that Shakespeare wasn't a real person. Like that he was.
Yeah.
He didn't write Shakespeare.
But apparently, The Tempest was basically inspired by him in his life. So
by John Dee.
By John Dee.
Oh,
yeah.
Interesting.
So Shakespeare and his theater existed by that time. But Shakespeare, the theater manager, and Shakespeare, the writer who wrote the books, is what he basically said. They're not the same. So that is a Shakespeare reference, and I couldn't find the reference. I saw the reference previously. I don't see it now, so I was clearly looking up the wrong things. And it's like just my luck. It's just my luck when I need to know about John Dee. I can't find the really cool references. You ever do that? It's like, oh, I know this thing. I just need to look it up. Oh, and I can't find it. It's like, Anyway, okay. So he's in the royal court. He's doing the thing. Well, one of the things that he did was he is credited with creating the term British Empire. He advocated to Elizabeth to explore, colonize the New World. He advocated to Elizabeth a lot of things about exploring, because don't forget the concepts of manifest destiny and things like that. Once the New World was discovered, all of Europe, it was a race. It was a race for Europe to claim pieces of the New World, because this New World was given to us, because we're not, and we don't need to get into the political part of how this affected the natives and whatnot, but from the European perspective, because he's in European, so he's like, get over there, do this, because he was very, very loyal to the crown. He was very loyal to the crown, and he was a devout, rabid Christian, which plays a huge part in how things went for him down the road. So he's convincing Elizabeth to outfit ships, to send men, send it to the New World. But as we all know, Spain and Portugal kind of got Central and South America, and the areas of North America that like France and Britain colonized into did not have the massive gold reserves. Like Spain and Portugal are sending back ships so full of gold, they're afraid the ships are going to sink just from the weight of the gold that they're carrying. I mean, it was insane. Billions and billions of dollars worth of gold. And that was billions and billions in their time. In our time, it would be trillions. So John Dee's going, get over there, get the land, get your name in history, get this, get that. And they're getting over there and they're finding lumber and fur. So he was successful in convincing the Queen to send ships and expand the empire into the New World. He was unsuccessful in giving her the advice she needed to get rich, because Central and South America was definitely a get-rich-quick opportunity for anybody who could stake a claim down there. And by the time, so the England, the British Empire was off the mark on that. So basically, he sends them over there, and it's kind of sad. Like, I mean, because he had okay, from the perspective of what's in the best interest for the monarchy, because we, like I said, we can't apply modern thinking to this. Getting over there was the best thing, because if they hadn't gone over there, then Spain and Portugal would have like basically taken all of it, and it would have bounced back badly against the British Empire. And again, and I know, and like I said, I'm trying to be really. There's no respectful way to discuss this, because this is 500 years ago, and from the British / European perspective, and we just have to like accept that there's no right way to say this. So that's what he did. He advocates for this, and the returns aren't coming back the way that the crown needs. So he's like, now it's like, okay, well, you had the right idea, but you didn't bring me the success I wanted. So now he's kind of losing a little bit of credibility in the court. And this is something that basically dogged him for the rest of it. Not this particular incident, but this coming up with the right idea, but at the wrong time, and without necessarily the payoff that that people thought they were going to get out of it, kind of dogged him for the rest of his life. So he was always like a day late and a dollar short, if anybody knows what that reference means. Lady Night, I have an overachiever in the room. That was something else. He was basically a spot. Okay, Lady Night of Avalon says, "Oh my God, John Dee is the original 007. How cool!" Sorry, read ahead. Absolutely, read ahead. But this is not okay. This is not me. This is not story. Okay, this is a little bit story time. But if you have anything to contribute, absolutely. These chats turn into shit shows for a reason, and that's why we love them so much.
The reason is that you're in it.
Yeah, the reason is that I'm in it. James Dee was. No matter where he stood in no matter where his popularity was or was not in the court, he was for his entire life, no matter what he did or where he went, a spy for Elizabeth I. Everything that happened that might benefit her and the crown, he made sure that information got back to her. So it was a very weird thing, because publicly, like I said, he's advocating, let's go to send your ships to the New World. He actually invented navigational instruments to help the British sailors get back and forth. That's why he was one of the reasons why the British Navy became as powerful as it did. But the immediate return of bringing back gold from the New World didn't happen. So again, it was like a day late and a dollar short. But the advancements that he brought to cartography, to map making, and navigational instruments actually really helped the British Empire for hundreds of years afterwards, which was kind of like really. So a lot of the genius that he brought to the table wasn't really recognized until way later, like after his death. Like, he left behind a shit ton of legacy. He is credited with basically he's credited in this weird way for founding a network of spies that would eventually become the Secret Service.
That's trippy.
Yeah, but here's the thing: the documentation being what it is, nobody's really sure exactly where the connection is.
Oh my God, I have the perfect image to put up for this part of the conversation. It's kind of fuzzy, so I'm putting.
Oh, she has a fuzzy image. So okay, so that's
Check
kind
this
of.
out.
What?
Oh, you can't see it yet.
Does it look like you because you were born on his birthday?
It's about 007.
Oh, about 007.
There it is.
The Earl of Leicesters and John Dee's symbolic signatures when communicating with Queen Elizabeth. Wow!
So you were totally spot on, Lady Knight of Avalon. He legit was the original 007.
Yeah, the original 007.
So the eyes.
That's kind of, now I wonder.
Symbolize the private eyes.
Private eye. Okay, private eye, right? Seeing things, keeping it private, taking it. Yeah, seeing private things.
Yeah.
Finding things that are private. That's kind of cool.
Isn't that cool?
So I want the one, the top one
does look like lopsided boobies, but he also.
It's still boobies. I'll take it.
I think he was also the origin of that sun sigil, which is a circle with the dot in the middle.
Yes.
I have a quote from him about that.
No, if you look up the sigil, I've got.
No.
Where's,
this is something else.
He actually okay. We're going. I'm sitting here with my legs crossed, and I shouldn't do that for more than a few minutes because my knee hates that. Because I'm not very bright sometimes, but anyway. So basically that's kind of where he's starting things from. He kind of ish falls out of favor with the court, but what also happens? He's in the court. He's doing this, and it's not quite getting the results that it's getting results. They're claiming land. They're getting resources. They're getting wood. They're getting furs. They're bringing back, like they discovered the Grand Banks. So they're bringing back all sorts of things that are benefiting. They're benefiting the monarchy. That are benefiting the crown, but they're not bringing back the massive amounts of gold that they were originally hoping to find. And I don't know how much this did hurt him. This is nice, but it's not as nice as what the Spaniards have, which definitely hurt him. But at the same time, he's looking more and more into alchemy. Now, it keeps mentioning necromancy. So he was a necromancer, and I'm really not sure what that meant. Now, it could have meant just reading entrails, like, because, kind of go do whatever. I don't know that he was studying human bodies, so I'm not sure what the reference was, and I had a weird week this week because it's like, oh yeah, I've got time, I'll do this tomorrow, and then tomorrow just never happened. The best time that I had to actually spend a day on this, I've got other things I'd rather be doing, and I've got lots of time, and then lots of time just never happened for the rest of the week. It was like such a shit show for me. This is why these chats are always a shit show. But so now he's getting into studies, and again, now in our chat last week, we discussed the exact same problem, and that is mathematics, astronomy, witchcraft, and magic are all interconnected. So you have to be careful. You had to be careful back then to make sure that what you were doing could be expressed and explained as a scientific exploration for the benefit of God, inspired by God, all these things. Now, John Dee was he was extremely religious. He really truly believed that he was working for the voice of God, hearing the voice of God, interpreting the voice of God, which we'll get to the Enochian language in a bit. So he truly believed what he was doing, but he was moving into areas that could no longer be defended as scientific study. And he's in the Queen's court. And apparently Queen Elizabeth's mother was executed for witchcraft. So she couldn't afford to be seen to be too closely associated. So once it was kind of hubris for him. As he got comfortable in the court, he got more comfortable exploring things that the court just simply couldn't approve of. And his reputation he didn't have a bad reputation, but he was just kind of falling short of getting a stellar reputation. Does that make sense? He was working on divination, scrying, and things like that. Turns out he was no good at it. So there's a problem right there. So Dustin's going to come in. Dustin from Modern Metaphysics. He's going to come in and tell me I've got it all wrong. I just know it. Oh, Kobe Bryant, the basketball player, was killed in a helicopter crash somewhere in, Caroline just pointed that out. Hi, Kay.
Hi, Caroline.
Yeah, there's a theory that William Shakespeare was a courier for John Dee and Edward Kelly. There's a whole bunch of theories that Shakespeare was just a theater manager, and a lot of these plays that he was getting were written by members of the court, and John Dee apparently made a comment on that. So okay, so basically John Dee's doing well, but he's not doing so well that his experiments and his explorations can be defended by the crown. This is kind of where he finds himself in. And then do we have the mysterious? Yeah. A life where he walked the very edges of acceptability, a side effect of being born a wizard in an age of upheaval, superstitions, and radical rapid advancements in science. So even though it's a golden age compared to what came before in terms of religious persecution and stuff like that, people will start. But it was still heresy was still punishable by death, and he's engaging in things that are problematic. So then, to make things worse for his case, he's exploring scrying. He believes that scrying and going into trance and mediumship can open you up to receiving the word of God from angels. So he's experimenting this, and he's not succeeding. So then he puts out a call. Apparently one of his sons was acting as a scryer at one point, but he puts out a call looking for scryers and seers that he can work with so that he can help them channel. Apparently it's like those who can do, those who cannot teach. So apparently he knew what to do, but he couldn't actually make it work for himself. And along comes Edward Kelly. Is that what his name?
I think Edward Kelly, yeah.
Along comes, yes, the curious Mr. Kelly. Again, I'm going to refer to the book.
Show the cover of that book up close so people can really see it, because that's a really book.
This is a really good book that kind of like storybook styles. It's factual information as the facts. It's using facts as they are available. It's not really embellishing, but it is telling these stories in a little bit of a storybook fashion. So Dee, in a subtle way, had put the word out that he was looking for a magical companion to work with, someone who had talents that he lacked, which was how he met the alchemist, scryer, medium, and channeler Edward Kelly, equal parts rogue and genuinely talented occultist. So occultists was it was considered related to math and science. But again, you had to be really careful what you were doing and how you were doing it. Now, the unfortunate problem about Edward Kelly is that he had his ears cropped because it was a common punishment for a thief. It was a common punishment for theft or fraud, and he had been convicted of forgery earlier prior to this. So he keeps his hair long. I don't think cropping was taking off the whole ear. I think cropping was cutting off the lobe. So his ears are cropped because that's how that's how a criminal was marked. And he's in the court of Queen Elizabeth I. This is not helping John Dee's reputation in court. So he's got an amazing reputation, but also a bit of ridicule. It's like, oh yeah, he's really, really good at doing this. It's unfortunate that he's doing it too late to benefit anyway. I already babbled. I think I've repeated that 37 times now. I can move on. It's fine. It's fine. Anyway. Yeah, I only have 2,500 books in my house. One more book. Oh, and John Dee had the biggest collection of books. He had the biggest library in the British in not the British Empire, but in Britain. Bigger than the University of Cambridge at the time. I know libraries are bigger now. He had something like 4,500 books, which was considered a massive, massive collection. And all of his books were related to occult science, math, spiritualism, scrying. All of it, everything was mystical. All of his books were based on mystic science. Oh my God, the coffee finally dried. I just spilled some water.
Oh.
I'm gonna get a mood shirt. I'm gonna get one of those mood shirts.
You're talking about a hypercolor shirt.
Something so that if I spill water on myself, it'll just go
80s.
boo. It'll be a rainbow blast, and I can call it a feature instead of I'm a slob.
Or from the 90s. Hypercolor was in the 90s, I think.
I don't know. I just want something to hide the fact that every time I take a drink, something spills on me.
Oh, Carol says, so let me put her comment up. So to make sure I'm on the same page, John Dee was a spy that gave late advice to the monarchy and went too far into the occult.
Okay, he was a spy who gave relevant. He was a spy who passed on any information that was useful to the crown. And that's all done behind the scenes. So that's not really public, if you know what I mean. What was going on publicly is like he's creating maps, he's creating navigation instruments, and he's heavily advocating for the crown to explore the new world, to bring back riches. But Central and South America are bringing back ships full of gold. North America, where the British colonized, is bringing it back lumber and fur. They're succeeding, but not as well as Spain. So it's like, so he's getting a good reputation for success, but it's not as successful as the competition. So it's kind of like, it's like, oh yeah, like, yeah, we got lots of wood now, but we would rather have gold. So it's not a bad thing and it's not a good thing, but it certainly didn't help him later on. The fact that he was a spy for Queen Elizabeth I is probably what kept him in favor for as long as he stayed in favor. But then he started getting into occult studies, and occultism was considered science as long as you didn't go too far. And the longer he was in court, the more complacent he got about his position in court, and the further he went. He brings Edward Kelly into the picture because he brings Edward Kelly into the picture to help him with the things that he's not good at, like scrying and channeling spirits. Only Edward Kelly has a criminal record. And so you're bringing a previously convicted criminal into Queen Elizabeth's court. It's not, so his reputation, he's basically killing his own reputation in the court because it's getting, because his religion, and it was because of his religious fervor. He's trying to find a way to communicate with God. He's trying to find a way to save people's souls. He's trying to find a way to bring more spiritualism and godliness to the people. He's doing it. He actually literally was doing this for all the right reasons, but he was letting all the wrong things influence him at a time when just associating with a criminal could cost you everything. Like, I mean, if your friends were criminals, good luck keeping a job. It was extremely classist. It was a very rigid society. So coloring outside the lines in that society was a problem, which is what he started doing more and more. So his spying activities actually became more relevant later, because what happens next is that he's losing favor in the court, and he really was. He was like he was married, and his wife passed away. He got married again to a woman who had been in the court. Edward Kelly comes along. We don't know much about Edward Kelly. He was married but had no kids. Yes.
There's a question from Carol Z.
Oh, I'm sorry. Were there guidelines for what was considered godly or not? No, it was subjective. So you had to be really careful. Because I could say, for example, that the angels told me to scry in a dark mirror. Well, that's kind of what he was doing. He was devoutly Christian, and he believed that all of his activities were inspired by God. So on a personal level, he's just fine. He's fine with what he's doing. But because he's becoming more and more laser focused on what he's doing and why he's doing it, he's just losing track. He's not paying attention to how his activities are being perceived elsewhere. He was accused of heresy more than once, and apparently he was arrested for it more than once, and only the favor of the Queen kept him from being executed for it. So at some point, so he eventually brings in this Edward Kelly guy, and they are doing seances and medium and like they were doing seance work, scrying work, and they were doing Edward Kelly would go into a trance and then speak for up to 24 hours. There's still, like, 500 years down the road, we're looking back and go, was this guy just a big fake who was profiting off of John Dee and his position in court? We don't know. But eventually this became controversial. This became a problem. And yes, he was mentioned. John Dee was basically the British Nostradamus, and he's actually been famous in occult circles for his entire life. And like I said, during his life things didn't quite go the way you would think they should go, for considering how famous he became afterwards. So at some point, Edward, so basically his relationship is waning in the court. Edward Kelly convinces him to move to Flanders, which is I forget where. Anybody who's in Europe might know what country. I think Flanders is in. It was its own country at the time. It's now Belgium. In Belgium.
Sure.
Okay, whatever. That's a geography lesson, and I don't want to do that. Anyway, so they move Belgium. So basically, it's like Edward Kelly most likely was the one who recognized that they were losing favor in court, who recognized that they were becoming more and more at risk. Elizabeth I, her mother was executed as a witch.
Belgium.
So yeah, Elizabeth I, her mother was executed as a witch. So there's going to be a certain, if you cross certain lines, I can't help you anymore. And that was definitely starting to happen. So they go to Belgium. Now they're doing more and more, and John Dee is documenting everything. So he leaves his house behind, and this kind of becomes a little bit important later. He basically abandons his home, and leaves all his stuff behind, takes his family, goes on the road. They're doing this, and one of the things that they're also trying to do is attract. They've lost favor in the British court. They're trying to gain favor in somewhere else, so that he can reestablish himself, because he wants to continue his studies. He wants this. He's documenting things fiercely. I do not have the time frames on when certain things happened, so I don't know if I don't know what happened while he was in court, what happened after he was in court. He developed his own sigil, and wrote a treatise explaining the sigil and how it was inspired by God, what was all about. And is it in this one? Is it in this one? I bet you it's in the one that's on the floor, and I have to crawl behind the couch and go get it.
Hey, that was just mean.
Yes, it was. I'm mean, and I can't help it. I'm sorry. Okay, so he does his own. Are you finding it, or do I have to climb?
Sorry, which one are you looking for?
I'll go get the book. I'll get the book.
No, what are you looking for?
Oh my God, I can't get the book. I've already lost the page.
What are you looking for?
Is John Dee's sigil.
Oh, I've got it. Yeah,
you got it. Anyway,
I already had it.
I'm back. I got the other book. The other book has a very, very short entry. This book has a very short entry on John Dee, like one page, but his sigil has a picture of the sigil. And I didn't save the page. So
this is one of the versions I found. It's called the Monas Hieroglyphica.
Yeah, he wrote. Yeah, that's this. That is, I think, from the front page of his treatise on explaining what the sigil means and how it's inspired by God and whatnot. So
I have a breakdown of what it means. Do you want me to put that one up?
Sure.
Because I looked all this stuff up, so I had it preloaded.
Each portion of the sigil has a meaning. Yeah, because the bottom part's almost invisible.
Here it is right here. Boom.
Oh my God, I'm going to have a shirt covered in crap by the time this is.
So it's Taurus, the moon, the sun, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, and Aries, as well as all the elements.
Yeah, so that is the sigil of John Dee without the writing.
Yeah.
He wrote and don't forget, books and treatises and these sort of things back then, they were all handwritten. An entire book could contain just 6 pages. So he literally wrote a book, he wrote a treatise, wrote a paper in detail, several pages long, explaining all of this. So yeah, that was his personal sigil, and he said it was inspired by God. So we got that.
And there's more to this too, actually, because I hit the wrong button.
You might want to, if you want to look up the Enochian alphabet.
Wait, don't get ahead of me yet, because there's something else about this sigil. There was a different document I found. Yeah, here it is. I want to put this one back up because, okay, so on this one.
She's putting this one back up because.
This is very reminiscent of the World card in tarot, because all 4 corners, you can't see it yet.
It's going to pop up in a second.
All 4 corners, Ignis is fire, air is air, Terra is earth, and aqua is obviously water. So it's like this image of his sigil bordered, and then the 4 elements are in each of the 4 corners, which to me.
So is that the full? Is that the full sigil?
That's.
Or because the center area is the sigil.
The center
everything else around it is his his mystical, scientific, astrological explanation as to why that's his sigil.
Yeah, but this actually looks different.
Because this was also something else that he did, though. He created sigils for people.
Yeah.
Based on their horoscopes.
But what's cool about this image to me is how much it looks like the World Card in Tarot.
Dustin's here to tell me I don't know anything about John D.
Yay!
Yay!
Fix it!
Yay! Fix it! Fix it! Welcome to the shit show, Dustin. Fix it. So we kind of so just to bring Dustin up. Okay, Dustin knows so much about John D. Just to bring you up to speed, we're kind of like we've kind of like gotten into his.
No, stay. We need you.
Asshole.
Oh, what?
He said I'm gonna head out.
No, he needs to stay.
You need to stay. You stay, Buster. Anyway, so we've kind of got to the point where him and Edward Kelly are now teamed up. Edward Kelly has talked him into moving to Flanders, and he's basically focusing, and to him this is science. Don't forget, to John D, to the people on the outside looking in, he was really messing around with some shit. Like, I don't know if this is science or devil worship. Like, he was, so to him this is science, and he believed that mathematics could be used to create a pure language to communicate directly with God. He developed the concept of what he called the Enochian language. So when they're in Flanders, they're working on this, but they're also trying to make connections with other people, other nobles, noble houses, whatever, because to gain a patronage, to gain the I don't know how close he was to being. He had already faced legal threats, legal trouble, been arrested a few times. I don't know. At least I have no idea. Oh, you called him a sasshole.
You called him an asshole.
I did. I call everybody names. It's bad. I'm horrible. So he's trying to basically regain favor through the European courts. So he's trying to make connections, but it sounds like they're just always not quite meeting the right person. They met one person, and I forget the person's name because it wasn't in this, and I didn't mark it. I didn't write it down because I wasn't smart enough to do it when I was actually studying earlier in the week, forgot all about it. There was somebody who's like, oh, come along. I'll introduce you to these people. We'll get you into the court. We'll do this. We'll do that. Turns out that this guy had nothing. Was penniless himself and was hoping to cash in on D. D was hoping to cash in on this guy's reputation to get in with the court. I think it was like Bulgaria or something. And this guy was hoping to cash in on D's reputation to get in good with the court. That fell apart. Yeah, it seems like most of his personal library still exists, and he drew the little thumbs up on the margins where he thought something was good, important. Most of his personal library was stolen during his lifetime. What still exists of his personal library, I believe, is in a museum. I can't remember where. So what still exists, when he finally came back to England from living abroad for so many years, his house had been looted so many times, was almost nothing left of it. His collection was like just a shadow of what it was. He at one point had thousands of books, at a time when books were written by hand. So that just famous scholars might have a massive library of 50 books. Like having more than 100 books was considered excessive, and he had thousands of books. He had more books than the Library of Cambridge at the time. The Bodleian Library, yeah, a lot of his stuff is in the Bodleian Library, yeah, and that's only a small percentage of what existed. So basically, while he's in Europe, and this apparently lasts for quite a while. I'm not really sure how long. And again, the references that I found don't really give a lot in the way of time frames. So he's trying to go out. He's in Europe. He's studying he's investigating his science, because to him this is science, and he's going to use science to create a language and a pathway and a way to speak directly to God through the angels. And this is where the Enochian library comes in. I mean, the Enochian language comes in, because Edward Kelly is going into trances. He's furiously copying down everything Edward Kelly says. So he's discovering, based on his writings, he's like, I've discovered that there's a angelic language. You can use that. If you learn that language, you can use that language. And that in these medium sessions, he's learned the language. He's wrote down the language. He's wrote down the alphabet. and that he's now learned to understand the language and can speak directly to angels or demons. The or demons part basically got him accused of witchcraft again, so he came close to being arrested all over again when he talked about that. And so he started being a major advocate for this. Now, mediumship, seances, and that sort of stuff was considered part of science at the time, but you had to be really careful because religious fervor, religious zealotry was also, if you weren't a religious zealot, like that, this was the people were more likely to be zealots than not in that time. Oh my God, I'm not sick. I think it's allergies or something. I've been like coughing off and on for like 2 days now. It's like making me nuts. So around this time, this is when some weird shit happens. So he's trying to gain the notice of the various courts. He is whatever he's doing in his spine. Bruno, what you doing, buddy? He tried to jump up and he missed and had to slide back off the couch. So he is a devoted supporter of Queen Elizabeth I. There's nobody in Europe is nobody in, like, I mean, he's getting some attention. He's casting horoscopes for rich and famous people. He's doing things to support himself and to support his family, that sort of thing. But he's not really what his goal is to get a patronage so that he can basically not have to work to support himself and can just put all of his time into his religious, scientific, mediumship, into all of these explorations, because he wants to learn the language of God, get closer to God, and bring God to earth. And of course, that's getting closer and closer to what's considered blasphemy in his time. So he's like, he was brilliant. He had some brilliant ideas on all of this stuff. But Edward Kelly's reputation got in the way, because Edward Kelly was a convicted forger. I think it was forgery that he was convicted of. Yeah. And then the whole thing falls apart for him because for some reason, there's a couple of theories on this. For some reason, so after putting himself through this, taking his entire family, leaving England, for some reason, Edward Kelly comes out of a trance and says that the angels have told me that we need to start sharing our wives. Yeah, it's noted, because don't forget, Dee wrote down all of this stuff. This is the word of God. He's taking this as the literal word of God. He's taking his mediumship. Edward Kelly, he would go into a trance that would last for 24 hours, and when it was over, he'd have to sleep it off for 2 days. So there's really a lot, like, regardless of what this man's background was, there's a lot of support for the idea that he really was a medium and really was an occultist and really was going into these trances. So when he comes out of this, Dee's upset. Kelly is like, well, that's a good idea. The women are not exactly thrilled. And because Dee is very, very religious and believes that this is the voice of angels speaking, they start sharing their wives. And then Dee's wife gets pregnant, but Edward Kelly didn't have any kids of his own. So obviously either him or his wife was sterile. Like that's kind of the assumed thing. So Dee's wife gets pregnant. So basically Dee died never knowing for sure whether his youngest child was or was not his own. But when that child was born, Edward Kelly offered to raise it. So anyway, so Dee and Kelly finally go their separate ways. They go their separate ways, and Dee goes back to England. So again, I gotta look, because Dustin's probably shaking his head going, God, you're dumb. But anyway, yes, that was eventually what drove them apart, because as much as Dee accepted that it was the word of God and the word of angels, it didn't sit right with him. And then when his wife got pregnant and him not knowing who the father was, that got in the way. They finally went their separate ways. He did keep the child because it's his wife's child. They came back to England. So there's some speculation that his falling out of court was more to do with Edward Kelly than to do with anything that he did. Because he was still a spy for the Queen, still sending letters to her, detailing everything that, information that came his way, still an ardent supporter. So Edward Kelly he brought a set of skills to the table that Dee desperately needed, and he was so distracted with trying to investigate for his own religious reasons that he was willing to be literally run out of his own country, out of the royal court. He finally comes back to court. And he comes back to court. The queen, his reputation is pretty much in tatters by this point. It's a really sad outcome, because based on the religion of the day, based on her background, with her mother being executed as a witch, based on all the things, she cannot afford to welcome him back into court. And that's regardless of whatever may or may not have been going on, because again, this is the 1500s. There's no hidden camera to refer to, so we don't know. But she did appoint him as the dean of a small school. Oh my God, the school is, I had the name. I really need to keep a notebook handy.
You have a whole book handy.
Shh, I'll be right back.
Peggy's checking her notes. Yes, that was me sneezing. Oh my God, Dustin says that I'm allergic to you. Ah.
Yeah, exile from the court. Yeah, so once he brought Edward Kelly in, soon the court was full of whispers, rumors about John Dee's obsession with necromancy, demon worship, and outright sorcery, and his use of scandalous, magical, fervent methods, as well as the presence of Kelly so close to the throne, created a strain in his relationship with Elizabeth I. So yeah, so that kind of, so basically he kind of Nostradamus, this is a good comparison. Nostradamus was smart enough to keep secret the things that would damage his reputation in court, and basically Dee wasn't. And that was that his lack of caution harmed him more than anything else in his life, because his studies were like, there was lots like, not like I said, if you compare him to Nostradamus was, well, I have to be careful because of the Inquisition, so I'm not going to, these are things that I'm not going to do. And John Dee went, well, these things are important because it's the word of God, so I'm just going to do it. And so he couldn't figure, so yeah, so I think this is something that really confused him, because he was so narrow-mindedly focused on this. So the Enochian language. Ooh, what's that one? I'm trying to put my cup back and it doesn't go. I'm going to spin in a half circle. Just give me a second. What did you just put up, hun? Because I haven't seen that one.
Know.
You don't know.
But I asked Dustin what it was.
Okay.
It came up in an image search for John D, and I'm like,
okay, Dustin, take it.
I have no idea. But it looks cool.
I think that's the Enochian alphabet in the margins and around the edges, and this looks similar to what
it looks like an Enochian sigil of some kind. I just don't know.
It looks like it's got some astronomical astrological. I'm sorry. Astrology and astronomy were basically interconnected back then. Again, he was a contemporary of Nostradamus, so
he says it's a sigil. That's helpful, thanks.
Yeah, he did create sigils.
I wonder if my source actually says what it is. I'm gonna see.
You should look things up before you. And you thought I wasn't prepared. My God.
I just thought it was cool. Okay.
Okay. So the Enochian language. That was one of the things that the Enochian language became the thing. Oh my God! What did I just do? I hit a button with my leg. There we go. Hey, Donna. You're not having a good day, but glad to see you taking a little self-care break and joining the shit show for a few minutes.
Oh, there we go. Dustin says his most popular one is the Sigillum de Ameth Enochian.
Enochian, yeah, because basically one of the things that he did was he cast horoscopes and created sigils for the rich and the famous, for anybody who would ask, really. But so the Enochian language. Okay, so the Enochian language is something he developed with Kelly, because Kelly was the medium and the channeler. In Kelly, Dee found a perfect partner, a medium and channeler who would be able to hear or see or receive the pure word of God. Because, again, as a devout Christian, Dee believed that things that came through channeling and through the whatnot were the word of God, which is why when Kelly said, oh, well, the word of God says we have to share our wives now, he was like, oh, okay, it's the word of God. Like D was, I think, okay, personally, I suspect that D was very, very naive about the ways of the world. I think somebody like Kelly would have been very, like regardless of what their private studies were like, doing the channeling, doing the readings and whatnot, regardless of what was going on in their in the scientific aspect of their relationship, I'm pretty sure that he followed Kelly's lead on a lot of things. And the unfortunate reality is that Kelly was a convicted forger. No matter what, you don't turn the, you do not move on to a better life after a conviction for a crime in that society at that time. He had his ears cropped. He had to wear his hair long to hide that. And you're only going to hide something like that for so long in the royal court. So basically, I'm just going to refer back to the book. Welcome to the shit show. Chat among yourselves. Oh, we love you too, Donna. Donna says, give me the shit show any day. I love you people. Because we're awesome. Shit shows are amazing. Okay, so Dee believed in a pure language of God, an angelic language. So this was what the channeling and the mediumship was looking for. Dee's plan was to somehow connect with the pure, undiluted voice of God's messengers, angels, to speak directly with angels and to literally reveal and study their language. The angelic language is often referred to as the Enochian language. And again, I mentioned earlier, so he develops an alphabet, he learns the language, he wrote entire documents in the language, and then some of those documents he also translated in English. It's derived from the prophet Enoch, who appeared in the Old Testament. Enoch was able to speak directly with the messengers of the Lord, angels. So the word Enochian really means the pure form of communication with which God spoke to Adam before the temptation and the fall and the banishing from the Garden of Eden. And again, now don't forget, whatever our modern view on the Bible and Christianity is, in the 1500s, every single word in the Bible was the literal, undisputable, factual word of God, and stop. So the book of Enoch talks about Enoch receiving messages directly from the angels. There's no hesitate. People believe that. That's just the end of it. You don't question the word of God, and the Bible is the word of God. And it almost becomes a bit of an important distinction, just for the simple fact of on our end in the 21st century is this need to understand how people thought back then, and Dee was no different. So even though he was a mathematical genius, he believed that this had a direct relationship to his religion, and in his religion, every single word in the Bible was the undisputed literal word of God. And this kind of becomes important, which is why he wanted to learn, which is why he wanted to use his skills, use astronomy, use astrology. This is why he wanted to use everything that he did in life was geared towards learning this language, getting the word of God. And yeah, he was a zealot. He was absolutely a zealot. He was a genius, but he was a zealot, and he probably had no social skills. Honestly, I suspect, based on what little bit I was able, like I said, I could. There are reams and reams of material about him, but I suspect that he did not have a lot of social skills. So navigating the court and staying on the good side of the queen and not getting himself in trouble was just something he wasn't really able to do on his own. Okay, yeah, it was decent. Oh, and of course, was D setting himself up alongside his own God, and that's blasphemy in the church. So yeah, whatever his reasons, and from all the readings, it seems unlikely that he was ego-driven. He felt that this Enochian language, this tongue of the angels, would help humanity by allowing us to connect again with God in a way that would restore our relationship and help free us from the inheritance of Adam's sin. So that was everything that he did was driven toward this primary focus based on his religion. But he, and the really, really interesting thing is like his scrying work and all of that. It was likely very rarely, if ever, him doing the scrying. He was interpreting what Edward Kelly, and he worked with other scryers as well. So he was interpreting what it was that they were saying. But it's really, really, he has a. Oh, did the dogs make your life a living hell?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the dogs can be needy. Let me see. The Book of Enoch is an apocryphal text that's not in the Bible, so it was not widely accepted. It was rejected by the Council of Nicaea. You're right. But Enoch was mentioned in the Bible. Enoch is mentioned in the
He's
Bible.
mentioned in the Bible, and he had his own gospel, essentially.
Yeah, but no, Dustin's right. It was rejected by the Council of Nicaea, but it was rejected by the council, but it was still going to be considered a very, it was why it's sketchy for him to be referencing and using Enoch's gospel as well as Enochian language. Basically, John Dee had a library of over 4,000 books, all of them devoted. Like, he probably had a copy of the Book of Enoch. Those books existed and were still considered holy texts. They just weren't considered. They were considered differently. I don't know how to describe this. But again, he was charged twice with heresy because of the beliefs that he did. But he had a library of 4,500 books, which in the 1500s was unheard of to have a library that big. Almost all of them dealing with religious and occult matters like this. It's actually his library and his books and his studies that are just really, really fascinating today. And I couldn't now, and Dustin might know this, I found no record of him actually having made significant predictions. It was more his study of.
I think he was more into magical practices than into.
Yeah. He was definitely an occultist. He was definitely he definitely played a very important role in Queen Elizabeth's court. By the time he came back to England, Queen Elizabeth gave him a small patronage to put him in charge of a university where he was basically had a difficult time being respected by the students. And then who came after Elizabeth? Was it James?
That's me.
Yes, fine. So when she passed away, even that was taken away from him because her son was dedicated to removing all traces of occultism from court, and he just wanted nothing to do with John Dee. So it's like, no, we're done with you. He was called to court and basically stripped of any advantage that he had. There was like, we want nothing to do with you. So King James, it was James. Yeah, cryptologist, alchemist, and astronomer. So astrologer. You know what? I know the difference, but I have to literally think about it, and I don't know why, because I should be. Yeah. Sorry, you're having a crappy day, Donna. So he can't. So basically, his later years, bubonic plague swept through, killed his wife and 4 of his kids. Not really any record what happened to the other 3 of his. So 4 of his kids survived. His daughter cared for him for the rest of his life. He returns when he returned from England. He basically came back to find his library was looted, and treasure hunters had basically dug up his entire property looking for buried treasure. It was just a free for all, and there's dispute on who was actually. There's a whole lot of dispute that this wasn't just locals looking for a quick buck, but these were competitors, other scientists and alchemists looking for. Because he was doing really well for himself, and he left. So, yeah. But John Dee he's credited for a lot of things, but a lot of the things that he is credited for didn't really start to take shape until after his death. Aleister Crowley actually quotes Dee a lot in his works. Apparently, studied Dee's works as part of forming his own everything about him, what he was doing. So yeah, a lot of ums at this point. Oh, hi Donna. But so John. But the funny thing is that, like I said, like he's credited with coining the term British Empire and advocating for the expansion of Britain. He's credited with basically creating the Secret Service, being the original 007. He's credited with creating this language to speak directly to God, but he's not necessarily credited with knowing, because there's not really any evidence that he used it that he taught anybody else how to do it, that anybody else knew how to do it. So, and the works that he created, I didn't really find anything about the actual works themselves, about what messages were gotten. What did I just do? Yeah, who doesn't understand should either learn or be silent. So yeah. Wait. Dustin said it's largely accepted that she and Edward de Vere probably had a bastard. Oh, the Queen?
He's talking about how Elizabeth didn't have a son. She was the Virgin Queen.
Yes. Well, she never married, I don't think. But I mean, it makes sense because she was in charge of the kingdom. For her, if the minute a woman married in those times, all of her power and authority passes on to her husband. She actually, if she wanted to be the queen and have any power and authority in her own country, she couldn't afford to get married. So, but that's that's political. So yeah, so that's basically where I get stuck and I get lost. Just he had a fascinating life. His life took him in a whole lot of areas. I definitely really regret not taking the time to look up more on what not the Enochian language, because that's a really fascinating topic. But it's like saying, oh, the French language is it's really fascinating, but I don't want to devote hours and hours and hours to finding out how he developed the language, but to find out what he wrote, what did he write using that language, and what did those writings mean? And I really regret that I didn't spend enough time on that, because I didn't give myself enough time to find the information in time. You know what I mean? Like I was still looking up the last of his like biographical information this morning. So there's that. Yeah, okay, yeah. James was Elizabeth's nearest royal relative. Both were direct descendants of Henry VII, the first Tudor king. Yeah. So yeah, and when James came into power, his goal was to wipe out anything that even was remotely occult, and Dee was an occultist. So that was just the end of that. So that's kind of where that goes. I think I want to maybe throw back into the hat, and we need to take a vote on this. I think I want to throw back into the hat the Enochian language, but I think I'm going to reserve judgment on that because I definitely want to look it up. I definitely want to see what it was all about. Because from an occult perspective, and from the like John Dee's life was interesting because there were so many times when, by the morals of the day, let's keep our modern sensibilities out of it. By the morals of his day, there were so many times where he should have been arrested, tried, and executed for what he was doing, and he never was. So like all kinds of controversy around how did he manage to avoid arrest and execution even when he was formally out of royal favor? Why did James not execute him as an occultist when James was purging that from the court? So something protected him, something and someone protected him. That's an interesting sideline. But the Enochian language and the books and the meanings and the information that came from those books, that would be an interesting study. So I think I might put that back in the hat. I think
Carol says yes, into the hat.
Into the hat, yeah.
I think Enochian language and Enochian magic would be a really cool topic.
Well, just secret languages in general.
Yeah.
Secret languages and secret languages, secret teachings, mystical practices. So I think I'm going to put that in the hat. I think I do need to reach for the hat because our kids are coming over. Our kids are coming. Okay, I'm looking forward to the kids coming over. I'm not a complete asshole, but kids are coming over. Kids are coming over later. So yeah, that's why our chat was all timed badly today and whatnot. So. Well, what we could also do? I mean, maybe there can be two hats. Maybe there can be the hat of multiple topics where we just turn on the chat, pick a topic that may not have enough material for a nice long chat, and just do a few minutes. Okay, this is getting boring. What's next in the hat? This is getting boring. What's next? Because there's a whole bunch of stuff. Like, I mean, I want to do a chat on Adam's Bridge, and I don't know if we have enough material to make it last. For a full chat.
You can put anything in the hat, and depending on what you draw, you can decide to do a live chat or a video or whatever.
Well, I can also pull more than one thing out of the hat. Okay, so I've got next week's topic because we're going to wind up now. He's definitely a fascinating read. I am going to be spending probably the rest of the day looking up more stuff about him. And again, we get what might be a related topic.
What do we get? Come on.
The Knights Templar.
Templar.
We are probably going to have to make sure that we schedule ourselves out to give ourselves a good 2 hours on this one.
Yeah.
Knights Templar, or maybe do it over two chats, put it back in the hat for a second round or something, because Knights Templar is awesome sauce. And I was gonna say, like, I wonder what it's kind of, okay, to me it's kind of related because I'm like, oh, something somehow protected John Dee, and we pull this, who were active in England and had a role in protecting certain people from persecution, depending on what was going on. So I was like, oh, wait a second, were the Knights Templar still active in the 1500s? We'll find out. Okay. Anyway, so we have our historical thing, and now we're good to go. And we're going to look up the Enochian language and see if we can learn enough about that for another chat later. And I have to go, or my kids are going to walk in the door, and then I'm going to be like, hey guys, say hi to the camera. But thank you everybody for stopping by. Thanks for chatting with us today, and we will see you next time. And don't forget to like, upvote, subscribe, because I'm just fucking awesome.
Thanks,
You guys have a great day.
Bye.
Hi. Oh, here's Bruno to say goodbye to. Bye.